the writer and director and producer of Boogie Nights. When he was 17 years old, he and I had the same. His girlfriend, my girlfriend, were sisters. He asked me to drive him home one night, and we became best friends since then. We don't really talk much now, but we were best friends for 12 years. Long story. But I had him rolling one night, and 2 days later, he calls me up and says, "Look, man, I want you to be in this short film I got an idea for called The Dirk Diggler Story. It's about the rise and fall of a porno star named Dirk Diggler." And I said, "All right, I'm in," because I wanted to be an actor, And a couple months later, we did a couple other funny videos and some other things, and then we did The Dirk Diggler Story, and he did well with it right away. He won an American Film Institute award for this video. It was a video film, and it's half hour long, kind of like a Spinal Tap kind of thing.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have here Mr. Michael Stein. We're going to get to know him today and have a nice conversation. He's also in the Austin area, as I am. Tell us a little bit about you, sir.
Okay, my name is Michael Stein. I do a podcast. That's how we meet. I do a podcast called Longshot Leaders. And basically, we tell the stories of underdog, stories, people that have overcome large obstacles that find success. I do it because I kind of consider myself an underdog. My story is that my grandmother escaped the Russian concentration camps on her way to America. My dad was a New York homeless street kid, only to make millions of dollars and then become homeless again. And I was an unplanned child, born 2 months premature, ADD, ADHD, and dyslexia and health issues, and really never had any success as a kid, all kinds of problems. I was put in a special needs school, and only success I had was making people laugh at me. And then one day, like most American kids, I saw the movie Rocky when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and I said, well, here's a guy like me, right? Here's a guy, it's like, he's not successful, but he keeps on trying, and he's funny, but the only difference between Rocky and myself is he's physically fit. So I made it my cause celeb after that to become physically fit and work out every day. And shortly after, within 5 short years, I became a physical fitness trainer. So that was a big jump for me. And I figured, you know what, this is like a muscle. Anything that, success is like a muscle. So I told I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, an actor, and a comedian. He was just an entrepreneur. And I told my high school tutor that. And she said, well, you might want to work with your hands because not everybody's meant to do what they want to do. And I said, well, screw you. And I went off to do a business, and I failed 2 days later. And I said, maybe she's right. Maybe, I've seen this ebb and flow of failure and success, kind of like my dad. I was like, oh, shit. And then about 6 months later, I decided to do stand-up comedy. And I did really well, packed the house. And so, there's no money, in packing the house in a comedy place. But I said, if I could do this in LA, where I was born and raised. And I said, I could bring people, to nightclubs, which is really big back in the late 80s. And I decided to become a nightclub promoter and became the #1 nightclub promoter in my age bracket in Los Angeles, and went on to do big promotional, movie premieres. And from then I was able to, become an actor by meeting so many people. My first acting role was playing Dirk Diggler in The Dirk Diggler Story, which eventually became Boogie Nights, which I appear in as well. And I went off to become a filmmaker, segueing from nightclubs, and had much success in that, winning film festival awards, getting my films bought by HBO, and almost a movie deal. But after 5 years of, being a filmmaker and production assistant and development hell, no movie deal. I was broke after being a wealthy kid, with my nightclub business. Now I'm broke again. And I said, screw Hollywood. I'm going to make my own movie. But the only thing, I was broken in debt. So I decided I'm going to start a business. And I started the business I'm in now. And within 6 months, I made $500,000. And I was able to make a movie called Love Hollywood Style with Faye Dunaway, Andy Dick, and Coolio. Found myself directing and producing and acting across a 2-time Academy Award winner. And I said, I did this because as an entrepreneur, I was able to see this ebb and flow of failure and success. And ever since that company, although I almost bought them out making that movie, that company has made over $100 million. And I still have that company today. And I said, if I'm ever going to do a podcast, it's going to be about people that have overcome large obstacles and find success, something that accentuates who I am and what I've done and what I do now. And that's why I do a podcast called Longshot Leaders. And that's why I'm here talking to you today.
When you tell people that you want to do something in life, that's like your dream. And they kind of discourage you in a way and say, yeah, you need to do something else because that's probably not going to work out. Why do you think people do that?
Well, I think that, people do things for 6 reasons, right? I got heavily involved in personal development. So I'll slide into some personal development, jargon here. When I was, when I started promoting nightclubs, that's when I got into personal development. Oddly enough, you think like when people were drinking and doing cocaine, why did you get, I never did any of that stuff. I got in personal development, but people do things mainly for 6 reasons. If you believe in 6 human needs psychology, they either do it for significance or certainty or variety or love, connection, or growth. So she might have been sincere. She seemed sincere. She might have been sincere and said, look, I'm just trying to contribute to this kid and, try to protect him away from heartache. Or, I doubt it, but she might have had a sense of significance saying, well, who are you? I'm a school teacher. She was a school teacher. And who are you? You're going to graduate high school. Who are you going to become an entrepreneur? Why you can't do that. I don't know whether I bruised her significance or, kind of, she was just trying to really, contribute to me, but people do it for those reasons. And I think her heart was in the right place because she seemed like a nice lady, but I was pissed off when she said it. And that's why people do. Sometimes some people, those people are there are vindictive people. You say, well, it makes them their modus operandi as they feel bad when you feel like you're going to say you're going to do something because it makes them feel inadequate, rather than another person might use that vehicle for saying, well, that inspires me to hear somebody else say that. It all depends on our mindset and what our belief systems are.
Well, for some people, it's a big discouragement and they kind of give up on their dreams. And for others, I think it's just a way of saying, hey, I'm going to prove you wrong, just to go out and do what you really want to do. I mean, for myself, I always wanted to be an artist. My first dream was that I wanted to make album covers. My second dream was I wanted to be a comic book artist. I kept hearing the same old, "Oh, it's going to be too difficult. There's too much competition. You probably aren't going to make it." So I gave up on it.
People will say things because, they do, I talk to my daughters all the time. It's like, why did they do that? Why did they do that? So look, we're all built the same, but it's how we get to our emotional, destinations sometimes are different. Right. So people have different vehicles on how to make themselves feel the way they need to feel. So who are you to go to Austin? Who are you? Who do you think you are? You're rock and roll. You're an artist, it's like, yeah, man, I am whoever I want to be. And you could be, people can, they just need to get the reps in on feeling good about other people succeeding rather than that knee-jerk reaction of putting them in a Vanderloop state of constantly look at somebody else and saying, well, that equates me not doing something. That doesn't equate that. Well, that's why people do what they do sometimes.
I've encouraged people just to pursue your dreams. I mean, even if it doesn't work out, at least you can say you tried. And even if you fail the first time, keep trying. You never know. Something could click.
Right. And I get it that people, like, if you got a friend, a best friend, and you're both trying to do the same thing, and you're both kind of at the same level when you start, and he just totally exceeds you, and he's a multi-billionaire and you're still struggling, and he's exceeding at what you wanted to. I get that. But then again, what difference does it make? It's like you have to find meaning because these emotions, you need to set an environment for you to succeed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have resentment, that's not a recipe for someone that's going to achieve success. That's a counterproductive, element in your recipe. Most self-made billionaires, self-made people have a key component that I've noticed since interviewing all these people. That's gratitude. The gratitude is the chicken and the egg, and then the egg comes first, right? So the gratitude comes first, and usually success comes after people that they find that equilibrium of gratitude.
Yeah, my reoccurring theme is always gratitude will change your attitude.
Right. That's nice. I like that.
Well, you have so many people that get kind of down and out, or they're down on themselves, and they're always looking at, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. And it's like, well, look at the things you do have, and show a little appreciation. I mean, whether you believe in God, the universe, the higher power, whatever it is, if you show that you are thankful for what you have, that opens the door for more things to come into your life.
Yeah. And the energy it takes to feel those things is exhausting. It takes a lot less energy to once it becomes conscious, competent or unconscious competence, you're just rolling with it. But, it takes less energy to, focus on what is going to enable you for happiness as opposed to what you don't have. And that's a lot of takes a lot of energy. I think that there's something to be said, it's like a Gary Vaynerchuk thing. Anybody knows who Gary Vaynerchuk is? He wrote a book called Jab, Jab, Right Cross or Jab, Jab, Cross. Basically, you give somebody, you give and you give, and maybe that, three out of 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4, you do a ask. There's a psychology to that, but it depends on, I like to get more of like a simple holistic look at it. It's like, look, what do you want your life to look like and who do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody that feels like there's a life of scarcity? Because when you feel like there's a life of scarcity, then you're constantly asking. Because if you give something, information, a phone number away to somebody, you feel like now I'm not going to have that, and that's going to get diluted or this or that. Hollywood's very much like that. It's like, I got an A-list friend, and now I'm going to give his information to you, and then I'm going to get diluted out of that friendship. And you live a life of scarcity, and I notice more often than not that doesn't help you to succeed. You live a life of generosity, and you don't give anything away. You have to be generous to yourself too, right? Which means you got to hold on to what you have. But giving, and it's part of a human need that we talked about in the beginning, right? Contribution, and it's a healthy connection. So that's how I feel about that. I feel like for me, it depends on the person, but for me, I like to try to give 90% of the time, and usually I find that if I feel like there's a life of abundance, once again, I'm performing so well, my asks from other people are very limited because I feel like there's a life of abundance. I have gratitude, and I mostly everything that I get is coming to me because I'm working hard for it and I'm enjoying life. And, usually people could sense that subconsciously. They don't know. They'll look at that person. My daughters go to, they have a life of privilege, and sometimes they'll go and say, I'm not pretty as other girls, or I'm not this, or why do the guys want to date me? 15 and a half year old, right? I said, look, probably because you just said that. If you're going to wear that, that's going to show up on you got like hundreds of muscles in your face, just a slight muscle contortion in a wrong direction, internally sends off messages to other people subconsciously. It just science, so, just don't permeate that outward, really try to work on yourself inside, and it changes things on the outside, just not physically or appearance wise, but also everything else that you do. Everything to me is what can I learn from this, and in our today society, we are fast tracking, psychology and human needs and why people do what they do so fast, right? So you can go on a YouTube. It's like, well, why is that guy's a dick? Why is his video doing so well? Well, he's offering something where there's a niche. People are going there, and he's offering sensationalism. Let's say somebody's doing something outrageous, and people have a need. Back to 6 human needs. People have a need for variety. That's a big human need. And that, if I told you, hey, Kyle, you're going to eat the same thing every day, you're going to do the same thing every day, and I'm going to tell you what you can do every day. And even you get tired and say, look, you're going to make love to the same great woman every day, but it's going to be the same thing, same way, same. After a while, I'd be like, well, I want something a little different, like that Twilight Zone episode. So they're offering something that's different, or somebody might be offering, something that's educational, or somebody might be offering something that, that meets a need, or they're like they're offering something that's politically lined up to what that person wants, so that's fitting a need. So they get connection through what that person is posting. How do I feel about, look, I think people could do whatever they want to do. I'm painting a canvas, and everybody has to paint their own canvas on how they want their life to live out. I don't shun the guy, that, who's the brothers? I forgot the brothers that just did the boxing match, Jake Paul and those guys. I don't fault those guys. They're just doing what they can, and but not my style. My thing is, I'm an ex-comedian or a comedian still doing stand-up at the end of the year again. I try to offer something that's funny. Not here today. I'm a serious guy. Or personal development. I'll do something on personal development. Anything that is you. I believe you should do whatever is you organically. That's my knee-jerk reaction towards doing these things, on video. Just try to be yourself. And I have high standards, but I don't have a lot of rules on how other people should live their life.
Right.
I, you know, but I have high standards on how I live mine, but I don't create a lot of roadblocks. None of this stuff that I'm preaching today is an exact science. It's almost a perfect art form on how the human brain works, but it's not exact science. But I will say that there's something that I always try to guide myself from my goals, and that's called the triad of a good decision, which is if it's good for me and it's good for you and it's good for the greater good, then that's the kind of decision I will usually take. The tough decisions that are the ones that world leaders have to do, because they'll say, well, it's good for me and it's good for you. Is it really good for the greater good? It's greater good for our country, but what about the other guys? So those are the tough hierarchy decisions that I don't envy, but I usually try to, have a triad of a good decision working on full cylinders when I, whatever I do, especially when it's public. I got the ADHD, as an adult, it's not an exact science either, right?
Mhm.
But I will tell all the components that they say is of an ADHD person. I am highly on that. But when I get hyper focus on things, and the tunnel will close in, and that's the only thing. So that's why I became really good at backgammon. My early 30s, I started playing backgammon. I became very good at it. I guess a person with hyper focus does well at that game, and started competing with people online, around the world, doing really well. And I was like, holy shit! I just spent 3.5 hours. And I was like, I got other things and other goals, and this is not, I don't want to become the number one backgammon player in the world. So I had to curb that, and that's why I told my daughter, I said, I'll do this, but I got to be careful. I don't want to fall in love with Minecraft, to where it's going to take my time away from other goals that I have.
Talking about disabilities, I know that's sometimes a hindrance for people, but it doesn't have to be a complete blockade to keep you from becoming successful. When you come across people that maybe have the same kind of problems that you do, what are the things that you, I guess, encourage them to do in order to get past those things and to not focus on that, but focus on your goal?
Well, the first thing I, tell somebody to do, I would tell anybody, whether they have something or not, they got an issue. I was like, well, first of all, kind of clear your head for the environment to make a good decision. And that is the triad of emotions, which is, your physiology, your focus, and your words. So, if you're really at a down state, anybody that's listening is really, they're at a pit. The first thing you have to do it irreverently, because I know you can't do it, just doesn't happen. Irreverently means you have to force it. So you have to change your body. So there's a recipe towards putting yourself in a positive state. And that recipe is deep breathing as opposed to shallow breathing. Shallow breathing is a recipe for, somebody that's crestfallen or sad. Deep breathing is somebody that's feeling powerful. Stand up straight, get your chin up, kind of start to, and immediately start to focus on where you want to go and not where you don't want to go. So where you want to go is this is ideally, if Mary out there said, well, I wanted this, but this is happening. Well, you already focused on it enough. Chances are, we focus last night, you focused 90% on the shit that was going on with you that you hated. Now it's time to focus 99% on where you want to go. So change your physiology, change your focus, then mind your words that you're saying to yourself and others. Make your words being empowering questions. So they say, when something happens to you, it's like, holy shit, I'm in a car accident. I'm going to miss the party, and that person was there. It's going to screw up the whole thing. It's like, all right, you already acknowledge that for 5 minutes. Now you got to say, what can I learn from this? What's interesting about this? What can I gain out of this? What's funny about those are empowering questions that you'll come up with empowering answers that will lead you in a direction. So that would be the first thing I'd say. Look, you got to change your triad of emotions. Once you get there, then you could start to think about, what do you want in your life? Now that you're at least in your peak state, you got to change your state first. That's what I tell people, it's like, count your blessings, because once you count your blessings, you start to do what's called in acting, called the Superman exercise, where you count your blessings. Look, this is why I have done this. I have done that. I have done that. Now you're in a place where you feel like not only things are possible, but they could be probable because you added up everything that you're good at. So then I would start to talk about their goals. fast tracking to like, a long conversation that I would have with somebody. If they were trying to go for a goal, I'd say, all right, first thing we need to do is make it a SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. I said, but we got to get a date, a deadline date, realistic date that is attainable for you, that you're going to make this goal happen. And whatever that goal is, trying to get over something, trying to like make sure it's like, I don't want people don't want to be friends with me or whatever it is. It could be anything. You want more friends? Well, there's a methodology to it. Model yourself after the greatest people that have done that. But there's a whole that I would just kind of take them on a journey like that. And it sounds exhausting, but tying a shoe is exhausting when you have unconscious incompetence. You don't even know what a tying shoe is. Then you got your tongue out and you learn how to tie it, and then it becomes conscious competence. And eventually you do it enough, it's unconscious competence, and you're on your way to the races. When you breathe, especially when you want to have oxygen going through your nasal passages and deep down in your lungs, and that's replacing the cells with the new oxygen cells, and oxygenating is going to boost up your dopamine. And it's also going to get yourself alkaline as opposed to acidic, because when you're acidic, you have a low pH. Not to be technical about all this, but this is, technically, what happens on that level. But it also changing your physiology is step one in that triad we talked about, and that'll help you give an environment to where you could start to at least open up to where you can come up with solutions for the verbal and the focusing. So yeah, I mean, breathing is number one. Let's say you're a quadriplegic and you want to be able to get in peak state and you're going to speak to an audience, which I've talked to somebody as a paraplegic, and he talks about breathing all the time. You can't go do jumping jacks, of which if you're a stand-up comedian or a podcaster, I suggest before you do your podcast, do some jumping jacks. It'll boost up your dopamine. Your brain will be working better. You'll be more on a positive, energetic, but it's just how the body works. And that breathing starts number one, and getting oxygen in there.
Well, in that time that you sit and you think about things, that's something else. I thought you had to clear your mind of all things. Like, no, this is the time that you actually kind of have a conversation with yourself and discuss what are the things that I need to do to achieve my goals.
Meditation's awesome. That's a whole other thing, because then you are doing all the things we kind of talked about, but then you're also just trying to slow things down so you can simplify your thoughts and take a very calm inventory of what's happening. And then really just kind of, because you have so much sense, you could breathe and you could do everything I just talked about. But if you're trying to, kind of change your state and do something a little different, it's important to get to neutral.
Right.
You could do everything I just said, but then if you're constantly moving, and I tend to do that too, but sometimes you just need to calm down and then practice doing nothing. So your brain can come up with other possibilities that you're not, you want to, sometimes they tell you to, as a dementia person that has, their parents might have dementia, say, look, put your underwear on with the opposite leg sometimes, or do something different that you normally don't do to change the mind. Well, if meditation comes into play, because we're all moving so fast, especially here in America, that we need to slow down so you can do something that you normally don't do and kind of clear your mind, have other possibilities. If you really start to identify with all your great accomplishments, and so not saying that don't identify your failures, you own up to those too, and really take pride in, saying what those failures are. That's what I've learned to do with the podcast. But, when you own all those successes and you really have them in your cognitive, that inventory of that, it sets, your trajectory to where you're like, you believe your life is probable in that direction. And also, if you start to, it's harder to have a non-belief that you're successful when you add those up, because your brain doesn't want to go through cognitive dissident, right? Which is meaning, I'm healthy, but I'm also a smoker. That's cognitive dissident. When you add up that vision board of all those successes, and then you say, well, this is who I am. And then when something comes along, your pathway of life, and then it contradicts that vision board of all those successes, you say, well, I can't do that, because that would give me, subconsciously your brain's saying I would cause cognitive dissident, and that enables you, it reinforces that part of your brain as well. And there's a healthy way to look at your mistakes. Some people say, well, I'm going to display my mistakes so you could all feel sorry for me, to gain connection. Well, that's one thing. But then if you look at your mistake and say, look, I'm going to, when it's kind of like comedy writing. When you write jokes, you want to write down all the bad ones so you could clear your mind for the good ones, right? And write them down, get them out of the way. So that your failures, accept them, bring them out there, write them out, write them down, get them out of the way. So then you can, say, look, I have nothing to hide. It's a lot harder to keep secrets and, you don't have to tell this to the world, but to yourself, don't keep a secret from yourself. It takes a lot of energy.
Right. And for heaven's sakes, when you're trying to do something, the best thing to do is just start.
Right.
You're going to make mistakes along the way.
That's true. I mean, I guess I was inherently fast tracked on that because when you're a stand-up comedian, which I've done since I'm 19, the most important thing is a rapport with the audience. So if you're so concerned about your material, it's counterproductive because that your material is important. Otherwise, you have nothing to talk about. But you want to set that, learn it, set it, and forget it, because the most important thing is talking in podcasts as well, or acting or anything. Talking to the person, really having that human experience, taking turns, talking, listening to them, really kind of getting selflessly involved in what they're talking about, because that Bandaloop is what we're here for on planet Earth, or what really satisfies people listening as well.
Well, I have noticed that you've had quite a few big names on your show.
That's great. Knock on wood, my life, through, stand-up comedy and being a nightclub promoter for so many years and acting and filmmaking, and, knock on wood, I'm able to kind of grab on some people. I don't have huge stars yet. I got a couple in the works. But I've had, and then there's all the people that I really just care about stars as far as high profile. The people that really interest me, one of my most interesting interviews is a guy named Ben Lesser, who was in the Holocaust, 92-year-old Ben Lesser, author. And he's not a huge star, but I mean, I'll remember his interview for the rest of my life, and those are the kind of people I surf to meet, because they have what I always say this, they have salt. They have a grit about them that they exemplify the human experience. It makes me feel like I'm closer towards why we're here on planet Earth, talking to them, and those are the people that really, when I think about the corridors of guests that I had, he's one of them. And people with those kind of struggles, I've had somebody on the show where they're the author of a book called The Unlucky Sperm Club, where his mom was raped by a police officer, and his mom's dad killed the police officer, spent life in jail, and he's the son of the dead police officer, and the grandfather spent life in jail. And I said, that's, but this guy is the most wonderful person, because iron sharpens iron, so those kind of guests, and anybody speaking, that's why I'm here. I do other podcasts because I'm just interested in finding other real people, not have to be movie stars, or rock stars or anything. I just want real people that have overcome large obstacles, find success, because those are the people that, it's hard to find. We know about every star it's ever had, but these people, there's beautiful diamonds in the rough out there, great people that people don't know their stories, and they're just wonderful people because all the hardships, and they found that success because they figured a way to get out of that living shit in hell, and I kind of love those people. So that's as far as what I think about my guests.
Tell me about your experiences playing Dirk Diggler and then being in Boogie Nights.
The writer and director and producer of Boogie Nights, when he was 17 years old, he and I had his girlfriend, my girlfriend, were sisters. He asked me to drive him home one night, and we became best friends ever since then. We don't really talk much now, but we were best friends for 12 years. Long story. But I had him rolling one night, and 2 days later, he calls me up and says, "Look, man, I want you to be in this short film I got an idea for called The Dirk Diggler Story. It's about the rise and fall of a porno star named Dirk Diggler." And I said, "All right, I'm in." Because I wanted to be an actor. And a couple months later, we did a couple other funny videos and some other things, and then we did The Dirk Diggler Story, and he did well with it right away. He won an American Film Institute award for this video. It was a video film, and half hour long, kind of like a Spinal Tap kind of thing. Yeah. And then he did his first, he did a live action short after that called Cigarettes and Coffee. And then he did his first feature named Hard Eight. And right around that time is when he got to sell the screenplay of Boogie Nights with New Line Cinema. And I just really never saw anybody that I knew had nothing also. I mean, he came from a wealthy family, but he did everything on his own. It was self-made. Nobody makes these movies for you. You have to write something great, and you have to do something great. And to see that happen, that really changed my outlook on life, because I felt no one ever gets a shot. I spent 3 days with Brad Pitt as an extra, and he was an extra on Lesson Zero in 1987. And I was like, these poor guys come out from the Midwest, never make it, because I really like this guy. And then like several movies later, I was like, holy shit, this guy I hung out with for 3 days, Brad. So seeing Paul do what he did, made me believe, this is possible, and so that's what encouraged me to go off and do what I did. And I had to choose, eventually I was very close, but how long do I want to try to go for this? And I reached that point where, I made my films and I did well, but I was never really able to turn it over to a massive career. So I chose between there's passion and opportunity. So I chose opportunity, and to this day, I'm entering, as my kids get older, I have a little bit more time, still do my business. I started this podcast in March, starting to do stand-up again. And now I'm also doing a documentary. I might segue back into, filmmaking and acting next year, and, keep that journey alive. And nothing's changed for me. I still just want to be an entrepreneur, an actor, and a stand-up comedian, and I'll probably want to do that till the day I die. So that working on those things just made me realize the possibility of what you can do and what things can happen as long as time plus effort. Eventually it'll give you the best chance for success. So that's what I learned from that.
Do you have to show your schlong?
No. Well, it's funny, when you go to like parties or something, somebody might say, hey, Mike's the original Dirk Diggler. I'm like, that was a fictional short film. And you got to preface that to people on what you're talking about. Cause they'll look at my crotch and I'll be like, my wife will be shaking her head like, no. I'll be like, yeah, no, and they're like, oh, okay. Because some people don't know what the Dirk Diggler story is. A lot of people know what Boogie Nights are, but they don't know what the Dirk Diggler story is. I'm like, no, it's just it's a live action comedy short, documentary style film. That was the short film version of Boogie Nights, and we stuffed the underwear, if you know what I mean. I was not gifted like Dirk Diggler. I think we used tissue or something, I did, although there's a shot where I'm in a jacuzzi and Paul, thought it would be funny to zoom in when I wouldn't have anything that was like on a winter day. And I was like, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that, man?
Oh, boy.
He's just got a funny sense of humor. He was Paul Anderson, funny. Paul Thomas Anderson's a funny guy. People don't know that. That's the best thing about him. He's gifted as a filmmaker, but his sense of humor is just amazing.
Do you have like a website or some social media that people can follow, and also the name of your podcast?
Yes, if you want to, just go to longshotleaders.com. You can see all my social stuff there. And the main reason is that, if you have a long shot story, if anybody, has overcome large obstacles to find success, just go to the contact page and pull it down there and let us know what your long shot story is. And we'd like to have you on the show. So yeah, just go to longshotleaders.com and you can find out more about me and what I do.
Thank you for being on the show. I appreciate your time.
This was good. You're a pleasure. You're the kind of guy, you almost may feel like, this is the kind of guy you want to just, pick a guitar with, have a beer with, and just kind of hang out and just talk. And it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks to everyone. If this is your first time catching the show, we're glad that you joined us. And until the next one, peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network